Welcome to Monitoring vMX with a KVM Hypervisor. My name is Josh Verhaal. I'm a courseware developer in Juniper Networks Education Services. I'll be going through this with you today. This highlights what we're going to be running through. We're going to look at general KVM virtual machine maintenance commands using the virtual manager, the orchestration script, as well as the virtual shell. We'll look at how you determine the VM status. We'll look at stopping and starting VMs, and we'll also look at deleting VMs. Then we'll review the KVM bridge information, the bridge table that contains all of the vMX interfaces to KVM hypervisor bridges. And then we're going to look at different ways of logging into and managing the VFP VMs. We'll look at specific directories where the log files and core files are stored on the VFP, and then we'll look at different methods of powering off the VFP gracefully. Okay, let's move to the host device now. Okay, let's begin by looking at let's open up a terminal window and start our Virt Manager on the host device. Okay, right here on the main page we can see that we've got 4 individual virtual machines running. We've got VCP and VFP for vMX1, as well as a VCP and VFP for vMX2. Over here on the side we've got some graphs that show us what the CPU utilization and host CPU utilization is. If you're interested in additional details here, you can open up the Edit, Preferences, and then the polling here. And we can poll disk input-output, network input-output, as well as memory stats. And you can change how often these stats are updated. Let's go ahead and include the memory stats for our polling. And then we can go to our View tab, and we can add that memory usage graph to what we're monitoring here on the main page of the Virtual Manager. That's how you see the status of the virtual machines in Virtual Machine Manager. Let's look at it from the perspective of the virtual shell, and that's a command line on the host device. So let's switch. We're going to switch to virsh mode. So we'll configure or write sudo virsh. That puts us in a virsh. I guess I've got to type the right password in. Okay. So you can see our prompt is now virsh, so any commands that we run here will be under the virsh hierarchy. So we'll start with a list. That shows us the status of all operational VMs. So again, we can see the same VMs here that we saw in Virt Manager. We can see the state is all running. This will only show you the operational VMs. So you can include the list --all, which will show you all VMs running and not running. You can change the all to inactive to see a list of all inactive ones. And if you ever have any questions on what commands are available for the list, you can do the help list. So there's a lot of different options that you can include with the list command. All right, so that's 2 methods for showing the status of VMs. Let's look at some general maintenance commands. We'll go back to the Virtual Manager here. And some general maintenance being stopping and starting, deleting and adding VMs. So to add VMs, you would use the orchestration script with your config files. That's outside the scope of this learning byte, but we do have a learning byte that shows that. So under this menu, you can reboot, shut down, force reset, and force off. The shutdown doesn't seem to work all the time. So I found that the force reset and force off are your best options. Reset being, a reboot. Force off puts it in a shutdown state. And you have that option for all individual VMs. So you would shut down the VMs one at a time. Let's see. To delete a VM, you would do the delete here. So we'll do it now, but it's going to require that that it be shut down. So that executing this will actually shut down that the VM before we actually delete it, and that removes it from the system. So if you're finished with the VMs and you no longer need those images running or being taking up space on your device, then at that point is when you would delete them. We'll go ahead and cancel out of that. Let's return to the command line in Versh, and we can look at some of the options here. So if you just type in help, that gives you a whole list of all of the Versh commands. So in this case, we're looking more. We're looking at general maintenance type things. So we've got a few options. So we've got the start option. So you could just run a start, and then you specify the VM name. There's a shutdown option, which, much like in Virtual Machine Manager, doesn't really affect the running VM. So the corresponding force shutdown command in Versh is destroy, which is right here. So this basically stops the VM from running. Now I know it seems harsh. Destroy makes it seem like it's going to basically delete and get rid of all signs of the VM. Not in this case. It just forces a power off. So anytime you do a power off of these VMs, it's recommended that you properly shut down the operating system running. So in Junos, that would be a request system power off or request system halt. If you're logging into a VFP, that's basically a shutdown, and you can include some switches with shutdown to shut it down, gracefully, and put it in a powered off state, a shutdown state in the monitor, and that's using a dash capital P dash lowercase h, and we'll look at that here in just a few minutes. Let's see. There's also another tool that can be used. You can use the orchestration script to carry out certain tasks. So to get to the orchestration script the way we have it set up now, it's under the home lab directory. So we need to, so we're on home lab right now, so we need to change directories to that vMX directory. And then under here, we have the vmx.sh script. And that's the orchestration script that's used for creating and manipulating your VMs auto-magically. So we'll just do a quick look here and see what our available options are. So under the script, we have the install option. That's for installing VMs. We've got a start option, a stop option. We can restart them, clean up files, the status. And these are all switches that you would include with the .vmx orchestration script to manage the VMs as well. So let's go back to our Verhaal shell here. And let's go ahead and shut down one of our VMs. So we'll take a quick look here. So we can see we've got multiple VMs running. And let's shut down VFP vMX1. So here we would do a destroy. And then you specify the device name. And you hit enter. So now you can see that the VFP has been destroyed. And if we do just the list, we can see it's no longer shown as a running entity. So you can include the all, the list -- all, and you can see that it's in a shut off state. And you can see here in the background, we've got the virtual machine or the virtual machine manager behind there, and you can see that it's also in a shut off state there. So let's go ahead and use the command line to start the one we just shut off. So then you specify the name, vMX1. Okay, so now it's starting up. It'll take a few minutes to boot. So that's basically stopping and starting VMs from the shell. To do that properly, we should have logged into the VFP and issued a shutdown to shut down the host OS. And we'll look at how to log into those devices to the VFPs a little bit later. Okay, so there is also the option to delete a VM from the shell here, like we had in the virtual machine manager. And that option is using the undefined. And then from here, if the VM is shut down, you would specify VFP, say we're going to do vMX1. So if I hit enter, it will undefine that VM or that VFP virtual machine that's on this device, and then once there's a power off of that device, that will no longer be available to be used. We won't execute that command just because I don't want to have to rebuild it. So, but that's how you would use the virtual shell to undefine or to delete a VM from the system. Okay, the next thing we want to do is take a look at the bridging table. So let's exit out of Verhaal mode, and back at the student desktop, we can look at the bridging table by using the brctl show command, and that will show all basically the host hypervisors bridging table. So we can see we've got the brext, which is associated with our external management, vMX or the VCP of vMX1, VCP of vMX2, VFP, and so on and so forth. Then we've got the BR internal INT for vMX1. That's the VCP to VFP communication channel. And we've also got that for vMX2. We've got a virtual bridge 2, which contains 000 interface from vMX1 and the corresponding interface on vMX2. And then we've got another bridge that has the 001 interface from vMX1 and vMX2. This would be where you would look to make sure that you've got the proper interfaces assigned to the proper bridge, hypervisor bridge, to ensure communication between different virtual machines on the same host. Okay. Now that we've validated the bridge table, let's look at different methods for logging into the virtual forwarding plane. So the easiest method, and so let's return to virtual machine manager. And all you need to do is click on the icon, and it opens up the login prompt for the virtual machine or the VFP. Another method that you can do is from the command line, you can use the orchestration script to log into the VFP as well using the script. Since it's a root level script, we need to include sudo. And then we include the console option and we specify which device we want to log into. Okay, and as you can see, so we would have a login. So we have a login prompt here. You can see the escape character is a control square bracket, and that gets us out of there. And then you just do a quit from the telnet session, and that gets you back to the original prompt. Another option that you have is on the host machine, you can telnet to the local host address and the port number. So we can do telnet 127.0.0.1 and the serial port number that we have defined for the VM. So we're at the same prompt here, and again, it's the control square bracket to exit, and it's so from here you would just do a quit. Okay, the next option is to log into the VFP from any device that's on the same management network that we have in our basically cloud, and that is SSH to the SSH as root to the management address that we have assigned. And for this particular VFP, we have a management address of 101. The root or the VFP password is root by default, so root, and you can see we're logged in to the local host now. Another thing we want to kind of look at is the where the log files are stored. So you can change directories to the var log, and this is where the VFP stores all its local logs. The VFP also stores crash files locally, and you can get to that at the var crash directory. And as you can see, there's currently no core files on this device. From here, I mentioned that you can shut down the VFP gracefully, and that's using the shutdown command with a capital P, which is, I don't remember what it was exactly, but we can do a shutdown help. The capital P is the halt action and to turn off the power. And then you have to include a minus lowercase h because the command won't complete without it, which basically tells it that it needs to halt. And then we specify the now option unless you want to specify time. Minus capital P, minus lowercase h, now. Okay, so what that does is that will shut down and halt the VFP for host 1. You can see that now it shows shut off, and at this point, you can restart it or leave it in an off state. Okay, hope you enjoyed this learning byte. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day.
Visit the Juniper Education Services website to learn more about courses. View our full range of classroom, online, and e-learning courses. Learning paths, industry segment and technology-specific training paths. Juniper Networks Certification Program, the ultimate demonstration of your competence, and the training community. From forums to social media, join the discussion.